Welcome to episode 61 of the State of the Market for Law Firm Sales in 11 minutes. My name is Jeremy Pook and I lead Senior Attorney Match. In today's episode, we'll focus on why the rewards outweigh the risks with regard to growth by acquisition. So let's jump right into it with that very point, why the rewards outweigh the risks for growth by acquisition. When it comes to growing law firms that are considering growth by acquisition, it's really six rewards that we're going to talk about versus three risks. So clearly, there, six versus three, the rewards outweigh the risks, but they really outweigh the risks. And here's why. When it comes to the rewards, or really when it comes to a growing law firm, right, what are the resources that any growing law firm needs and wants? First and foremost, they need and want new clients. Secondly, is they need talented lawyers and support staff to do the professional and sophisticated work on behalf of those clients. So when it comes to growth by acquisition, those two rewards are achieved because a senior attorney led firm that is a selling law firm, what does a selling law firm have? Well, they have a book of business that's been developed often over the course of decades, i.e., they have clients. In addition, senior attorney led firms often have senior attorney founder or founders plus very talented lawyers and support staff. Those lawyers and support staff, just for growing law firm owners to know, and most senior attorneys already know this, they know that their key employee lawyers do not want to purchase their law firm and they can't afford to either. Hence, the rewards there are that when growth by acquisition occurs, the growing law firm acquires the book of business as well as talented lawyers and support staff. The next reward, the third reward, relates to the payment terms. For now, we remain in what we call Law Firm Sales 1.0. In Law Firm Sales 1.0, the major asset that a senior attorney led firm is selling is that book of business. The book of business is primarily attributable to Rainmaker attorneys at the selling law firm. So when it comes to a buyer does not know for sure that those clients are going to retain the growing law firm. So from a reward standpoint, it's a very low risk proposition at this point to grow by acquisition because deal terms are typically structured as earnouts. That is, for the senior attorney firm selling that book of business, the growing purchasing firm will agree to fee share a percentage of the collections derived from the book of business over a negotiated period of time. Said differently, the sale terms are typically long-term earnouts, or said even differently than that, it is seller financed. The reason why we continue to say for now is that as we are in what we call the 3.0 digital era for the legal industry, law firms are developing brand value and digital value. And as law firms are developing that brand value and digital value, the goodwill nature of law firms in terms of that book of business being derived by Rainmaker attorneys is changing. And when that changes and a selling law firm is able to show data analytics that supports how clients come to the firm because of that brand value and digital value, there will be higher multiples when it comes to law firm sales, and the earnout will begin to disappear. And we're seeing law firm sales 2.0. But for now, as a reward for growth by acquisition, most deal structures are seller financed earnouts. In terms of the next three rewards, those rewards are what I'll call a mixture of old school and new school. So what do we mean by that? When it comes to how we're going to represent clients, as well as how we're going to attract new clients in this digital era, what growing law firms need is subject matter knowledge, right? You need lawyers that have the subject matter knowledge to be able to competently and zealously represent the clients. More and more now that we're in this digital era, subject matter knowledge is being converted on a daily, multiple times per day basis by smart growing law firms to be pumping out digital content via multiple channels of digital marketing, right? Because clients today are going online, they're searching for best fill in the blank attorney near me, and they want and need to see digital content. Senior attorney led firms, those selling firms, are literally sitting on treasure chests of digital content, and smart growing law firms are retaining, bringing in senior attorneys as well as the attorneys at their firms, and they're converting that subject matter knowledge into LinkedIn posts, into podcasts, into video FAQs, and a plethora of additional digital content to attract the attention of today's and tomorrow's clients who continue searching for lawyers online. Just an additional piece of that in terms of that subject matter knowledge is increasing the benefit of a growing law firm's website because you're adding the bios for those very well experienced lawyers as well. From an old school standpoint, another reward is a legacy phone number. Often senior attorney led firms, they've been in the community, they've had a given phone number for decades. And for certain law firms, that's highly valuable. So let's think about, for example, trust and estates firms that have published hundreds, even thousands of wills. Well, almost every will has that proverbial blue jacket on the back of the will with the phone number for the law firm. So if the will or estate plan needs to be amended, or God forbid the person passes away, family member is going to, or the client is going to call that law firm based upon that phone number. A legacy phone number has real value. Why? Because it leads to new business from current and past clients of the selling law firm. And then lastly, the sixth reward is a digital benefit. Let's call that new world. That is that selling law firms have by now established websites. They have established rankings, SEO type rankings. They're also more and more, they are asking their clients for 5-star Google reviews, right? 5-star Google reviews, as we know, are huge. So when you are purchasing a senior attorney led firm and you're acquiring the website, acquiring its rankings, acquiring 5-star Google reviews, these are all very valuable in terms of how does a law firm in the mid 2020s heading into the 2030s, how are they going to attract new clients in this digital era? It's going to continue to be digitally, and acquiring the digital assets, the digital value of a senior attorney led firm is yet another reward. But of course, we're lawyers, right? And we're going to be spotting issues and we're going to be spotting risks. So now the three risks associated with growth by acquisition. The first of those three risks is, well, I, as a buyer, I don't want to overpay. I don't know if the clients are going to continue to retain the buying firm. Well, as we discussed before, in terms of that third reward, how we're structuring law firm sales still as law firm sales 1.0, that risk of overpaying is mitigated by structuring the sales based upon the performance of the book of business. If the clients continue to retain the growing purchasing firm, senior attorney seller gets paid. As a result, the growing law firm will not overpay. And if they do pay significantly, it's only because the clients continue to retain the law firm and the lawyers at the growing law firm. Second risk is, all right, if we're taking on this book of business as a growing purchasing firm, well, we may not have the capacity to do all the work. Let's go back to the trust and estates example. If we're taking on a senior attorney led practice, they have 1,000 wills in their will vault. How are we going to be able to service that work? Well, the lawyers at a senior attorney led firm and their support staff, what do they really want? They want to have a reliable, predictable, and safe job. And when growing law firms are acquiring senior attorney led firms and they want and need the book of business, they also want and need that talented staff that will continue with the growing law firm, because those key employee lawyers and key staff persons, they want to maintain a reliable, safe, and predictable job. And then lastly, the last risk is, all right, what about overhead, right? If we're going to take on these new clients, these new employees, there's going to be just so much overhead here. It's just not going to be affordable to us. And there we just ask people, please crunch the numbers. You'll see that the revenues that are coming in from a senior attorney led firm and the potential revenues. Let's think about all the work that they, over the years, that is the selling firm over the years, has referred out to other lawyers that can now be kept in-house. Let's think about all the marketing that has never been done. Senior attorneys have always wished that they could send out an e-newsletter, wished that they could do podcasts, wish that they could do videos, wish that they could send out, more than just a Christmas card at the end of the year. Well, now Growing Law Firm is able to market to those clients. So in terms of that risk of the additional overhead costs, just please recognize that bringing in often hundreds of thousands of dollars in new revenues, even seven figures, even larger sometimes, when growing by acquisition, that absolutely justifies the increase in the overhead. And now let's look at the four winners. Okay, so when senior attorney led firms are sold to growing law firms, or said differently, when growing law firms acquire senior attorney led firms, there are four winners as a result. First and foremost is the senior attorneys themselves. As a growing law firm, please know there are scores of senior attorneys in your communities that want to practice less, they want to retire, and growth by acquisition presents a tremendous win because a growing law firm acquires that practice, gives a senior attorney an off ramp to be able to practice less and monetize the practice. Second winner is the key employees, right? The key employee lawyers, as well as the support staff, right? When you're growing by acquisition, it's a win-win there. Those key employees, they want a reliable, safe, and predictable job. And growing law firm, what is it that you always need? You need talented staff to do the sophisticated work on behalf of your clients. Next win is the clients. Of course, for the growing law firm, they're acquiring a whole new book of business. For the clients themselves, it's a huge win because they will have ongoing, continuous, zealous, and competent representation. And of course, for the growing law firm itself, the wins there for growing law firms are threefold: acquiring a new book of business. They are taking on and adding to their combined workforce by adding on talented lawyers and support staff. And they are increasing the digital value of their practice by taking on senior attorneys who have those treasure chests of digital content that can be converted from their subject matter knowledge that they've developed over the course of their careers. So now we're going to go into our recap. So for today's recap is why the rewards outweigh the risks for growth by acquisition. So in, in summary, the rewards outweigh the risks because when growing law firms acquire senior attorney-led firms, they instantly grow their practice by taking on a book of business. They grow the workforce of their practices by recruiting talented lawyers and experienced support staff. The structure of payments is very low risk in today's market in what we call law firm sales 1.0, which are structured primarily as earnouts, really seller financing based upon the performance of a selling law firm's book of business and fee sharing over a negotiated period of time. The growing law firms are also benefiting by having the ability to convert the subject matter knowledge of senior attorneys and additional lawyers at their firms into digital content for much needed, really must needed digital marketing that growing law firms need to continue doing today, tomorrow, and tomorrow's tomorrow to attract the attention of clients who search online today for their lawyers. You succeed to a legacy phone number and you benefit by the website that senior attorneys have developed and invested in over the years, including their 5-star Google reviews. In terms of the risks are limited to: could you overpay? Well, not really, because you're hedging the payment based upon an earnout. What if you don't have enough staff to service the work? Well, you're recruiting in the lawyers and support staff from a senior attorney-led firm. And what about adding on overhead costs? Well, the new revenues that will be generated from that book of business of a senior attorney-led firm more than justifies the additional overhead that growing law firms take on when they grow by acquiring senior attorney-led firms. Hence, the rewards absolutely outweigh the risks when it comes to growth by acquisition for growing law firms. And that is today's state of the market for law firm sales. And I recognize more than 11 minutes.